Thanks for taking the time to download this BBC Radio 5 Live podcast. To search for other podcasts you might like, click bbc.co.uk/5live, where you'll also find our terms of use.
Not many people can include footballer, stockbroker, rock star, best-selling novelist on their CV. Most people would want just one of those things. But our guest, Jo Nesbo, overachiever that he is, he can definitely do that. His crime novels, including the world-famous Harry Hole series, have sold more than 33 million copies around the world, been translated into some 40 different languages. And his latest book, The Thirst, is the return of the anti-hero Harry Hole. And Jo, welcome to 5 Live.
Good to talk to you.
Good to see you here, my friend. Good to see you.
Awesome glasses. Can I just get that out of the way, first of all, for anybody who's watching on the webcam?
Okay. Yeah, these are my rock star glasses.
And the lens colour matches the hoodie.
Yeah,
which is serious. I mean, that is kind of hip-hop levels of clothing coordination.
See,
thank you.
That's real swagger right there. That's a guy who gets up very early to make sure he looks on point.
Nahal doesn't miss a trick when it comes to fashion statements.
That is a statement right there. This is an extraordinary life that you are having and you have had. I was fascinated by the Nesbo dinner table when you were growing up. Your father, 3 brothers, almost having an Eminem-like rap battle based around stories and storytelling.
True, yeah. Yeah, that was sort of my school, I guess, for telling stories. It was not only my father, but when we gathered for family holidays, it would be my uncles and aunts, and they would all fight, to get in the word. This year is my turn to tell the story about Peter and the horse, which is a story totally without any punchline or anything, but we just loved hearing those old family stories. And I guess that as a kid, you don't, you just enjoy being with the grown-ups, and you start analyzing the stories, the way they are told, the way they, change from year to year, and you understand stories are seldom about the punchlines. It's about how to get there.
You were the middle child,
yeah,
and you have talked about how you had a bit of a stutter as a child because there's quite a lot of pressure in that storytelling environment.
Well, you were on stage when finally you were a bit surprised because you realized that it was your turn to tell the story, and it did start with a long stutter before I got into the story. But I had to, I guess, I was a bit nervous, so I put in way too much blood and murder even at a young age. I remember even in school when we had essays, we would have probably the same essays as you have here, like titled "A Nice Day in the Woods," and I would write about "Nice Day in the Woods," only in my essay nobody came back alive.
What age are we talking about?
Nice day in the woods if you're a serial killer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, let us talk about this new book and the return of Harry Hole. Why have you brought him back now? I'm very glad that you have. Millions of others will be very happy that he's back too. But why now?
Well, he was always there. It was just it took some time because I had some other ideas that I had to work on first. Some standalone books that I had to write. So and it was actually Blood in the Snow and Midnight Sun and the Sun. And I was actually about to write another book, and I was doing research for that book, and I was sort of down in the cellar, in the dark cellar of psychiatry, when I came across something called clinical vampirism, which is people with an urge to drink blood. And for me, it was interesting and fascinating because it was sort of just a word, clinical vampirism, that suggests a mix between myths and legends and real science.
Oxymoronic, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, that is sort of my area. That is, fiction and reality and drinking blood. So I realized that, okay, this is probably a case for Harry.
Well, when we see him again after all of these years, he's happy. He's a happy man. He sleeps well, sort of, and wakes up quite often happy.
Yeah, but the problem is he has no experience in being happy. He's no good at being happy. So he's worried. He says that it feels like walking across a lake that has a thin layer of ice, and you are just waiting for the ice to break. You can already hear it cracking, and you almost just want to get it over with. Why can't the ice break right away? And I guess it's no spoiler to say that, yes, the ice will break.
You've said that Harry probably is the most you of any of your characters. When you look back at some of the situations you've put Harry in over the years, you look back and go, oh, gosh, I was going through this at the time, and that's why that happened. So on that basis, how good are you at being happy?
Probably not very good. I had a ex-girlfriend of mine told me that, Jo, you actually like being miserable. And I'm not sure about miserable, but that sort of a little sweet sadness,
melancholy,
doesn't hurt. Exactly, melancholy.
My husband's like that. He's an artist.
Yeah. Okay.
And presumably you're someone who can get bored very easily. Considering the amount of things that you have done, you seem to be constantly pushing yourself to have new experiences, which is no bad thing. I mean, that should be the essence of being a human being.
Well, I do find it fascinating to try things I'm not very good at.
Then you end up being really good at them.
Oh well, not all of them. Right now I'm very much into rock climbing for two reasons. I realized that I'm not a naturally talented rock climber. I really had to struggle to climb technically well, and I'm also have a slight fear of heights, which makes it very demanding mentally.
Do you have a fear of letting go of control as well?
Yeah, probably, yes.
Because,
yes.
Of course, being an author is quite a solitary existence, isn't it? And rock climbing is a solitary existence if you want to.
Exactly. And I tried directing a movie, a short movie, and it was so frustrating because you had to rely on other people. You had to rely on the weather. You had to rely on a lot of things. And the good thing for me as a control freak writing novels is that you control everything. There's not even a budget, It's I like to lock myself into a room and just control everything, create my own universe, be the king.
Are you always in control of Harry? It sounds like an odd question because you're the author, but of course he's someone that you've spent a lot of time with.
No, but it's a good question because sometimes your characters, they will do things that you hadn't planned. And I'm not one of those writers who say that I don't know what is going to happen. I just sit down and things start happening. I actually plan in detail what is going to happen. So it's even more frustrating for me when I have my characters start talking, and that's when it happens, when they start talking and they take on a life of their own, and you realize that you can't have them do what you had planned them to do, and so you sort of had to change the plot.
You're listening to Jo Nesbo. It's afternoon edition on 5 Live. He's going to stay with us for the next couple of days. Somebody's saying that they're sitting in the sunshine just finishing off Midnight Sun.
Is he with us for the next couple of days?
Did I say day?
Yes.
Oh, well, I wish.
Jo, sorry about that. But like one of your
Excellent.
stories, we are imprisoning you here and you will not be able to leave.
Actually, Jo is presenting the programme for the next 2 days.
I like it here.
So good news. Oliver says he's finishing off Midnight Sun, and such a pleasure to hear him pop up in your interview. I've read all of his books. I'm a huge fan. Sending my thanks for his fantastic stories, and I cannot wait for the new Harry Holler book. We'll be talking more about that with Jo in a little while, not for the next few days, but for the next few minutes. So, of course, we have football to talk to you about. Indeed, your own football career, Jo, and being in a hugely successful pop rock band as well. But continue with the writing for now. And you were talking earlier about being with your dad and your brothers and that slightly competitive atmosphere that you would have telling stories at the table. But your own father, I've heard you describe him before as telling you that lying was quite a healthy thing to grow up with, but he had his own secrets, didn't he, from you until you were 15?
Yeah, I grew up in a family where we talked a lot about the war, Second World War. And the reason was that when Norway was occupied by Germany in 1940, I didn't know that my father volunteered to fight with the Germans against the Russians on the Russian border to Norway, and that he spent many years during the war in the trenches outside Leningrad. I was 15 when he told me. I was brought up with the stories from the other side of the family, my mother's family, who was in the resistance movement. But to me, after the initial shock of imagining my father with the German helmet, I think that was just incomprehensible for me, that this guy that I loved so much and that I respected so much actually had fought with Hitler's troops. And so it was sort of the backdrop also for my third novel, Redbreast, which deals with Norwegians during World War II, young men who for different reasons decided they would fight on the Eastern Front.
How did it change your relationship with him, because you adored him?
I actually came even closer to him, because he said he made no excuses. He had to spend, like everybody who fought with the Germans in Norway, 3 years in jail after the war. And he said, I think that was fair punishment for being as wrong as I was. And he said, you can ask any question. And I did. And for me, I think it made me it made me understand how history is written, how it's always written in retrospect, in hindsight, and that in order to understand history, and this is interesting, I've spoken with historians who also say that the most difficult thing about writing history is to try to put you in the shoes of the people living at that time, and knowing what they know at that time, and more importantly, not knowing what we know now. It's I think it's the same thing. Right now, I've been working on a version of Macbeth set in the 70s, and I was surprised when I started doing research on 70s, because most of us remember 70s as a time of optimism and material progress, and almost this innocence, this summer of love. But actually, if you look at the 70s, it was a grim time.
Depression.
It was
lots
a
of terrorism as well globally.
People woke up in the morning with the fear of a nuclear
Atomic
war.
bomb, yeah.
Unemployment, pollution, high crime rates in all the major cities in the world.
How did Anders Breivik, the white supremacist who killed 77 people, I don't need to tell you the details of what happened, started in Oslo, a city you very much called home as a child. How did that affect you and your attitude towards that country that you loved?
Well, I think it... first of all, I think that what happened at Utøya is a little bit different from other national traumas like 9/11 in the United States, which is, because that kind of events force you to ask certain questions. Like in the United States, Americans would have to ask themselves, why do so many people in the world hate us? And you also have the murder of the Swedish Prime Minister in Sweden, Olof Palme, where they never found a murderer or know why he was killed, and for that reason became a national trauma. In Norway, it didn't feel like it was something inevitable. It didn't feel like it was, something that was bound to happen because of certain political currents or undercurrents in Norway. This was one single individual who committed these crimes, and we know exactly why he did it. He wrote 1,500 pages on why he did it. So it feels more like a natural disaster, more like an earthquake. it is something that will stay with us for the rest of our lives, and also for me. And it sort of it was the end of innocence in a way. I think Norway realized that what happens in the rest of the world can also happen in Norway, who up until then was sort of this innocent village in the outskirts of Europe and the world, who were protected by our oil money, and nobody really hates Norway, which is a good thing about being a small nation. But then you realize that anything that happened in the world can happen here.
How do you see the state of Norwegian society now? We live, some people believe, in increasingly divisive times, and there is a huge amount of debates, especially in Sweden, your neighbour, about immigration and multiculturalism, etc. How is it in Norway?
I think it can be compared to Sweden in many ways. I think that you have I wouldn't say it's probably a little bit more extreme in Sweden, but still you have a right-wing party who has been winning support for especially their views on immigration, and so it is more. The discussion is more polarized, I think, now, especially on immigration, while traditionally the political spectre in Norway has been left center and right center.
Right. How does that affect you?
As a writer, you mean?
Yeah.
Well,
as a human being, I mean, as someone who perhaps would be regarded as the liberal elite, as it were.
Yeah. Well, I think that what you see is that the world is coming to Norway. That Oslo as a city and Norway as a country is becoming probably more similar to the rest of Europe. But I think when we talk about these political changes, they are not huge changes. Norway is, compared to the rest of the West, still a stable political nation. But I think that anything that happens, both politically and personally, as a writer, it will sort of, in mysterious ways, find its way to your pages. And often it's not like you are addressing. It's not certain problems or certain issues. It's not like I have an agenda. But I do realize sometimes years after I've written stuff that I was writing about stuff that was going on in my city, in my country, and definitely in my personal life.
You said Oslo is becoming more like other big cities in Europe, but it's interesting because Oslo, Norway, of course, not a member state of the EU. And the last time that we spoke to you, it's very weird, was the day that the top news story, the Labour leader, Tony Blair, former Labour leader, was warning against the plans for an in-out referendum on the EU. We did that interview 6 weeks out from a general election, and we are 6 weeks, but a little bit more out from a general election again.
We only get you in when general elections are coming.
In the meantime, we've had the referendum and we've voted out. What do you make of that? What do you make of Brexit, given Norway's position outside the EU?
Well, I think it was, if you talk to Norwegians, they would say that, last year we had two big shocks waking up in the morning, and Brexit was the first one, and Trump was the second one, and none of them were good news. I think that most Norwegians would prefer a strong and united EU, and of course we can relate to the problems with being in the EU, which is why we sort of stay out of EU. But
you still think that Britain should have stayed within, even though you're not?
I think it would. What I can say is that it would probably be in the interest of Norwegians for Britain to stay in the EU.
In what way?
But well, politically, for traveling purposes, simple as that, and just having to cope with one counterparty in trade, the EU, and the rules. Now we have to suddenly have a different set of rules for the UK, which is complicated, of course.
It's not surprising, given that your books have sold more than 33 million copies, that they would eventually end up on the screen in various different forms. But there's a couple of really exciting things happening at the moment. The Snowman, another Harry Huller book. Michael Fassbender playing him. I know you haven't had much direct control over it, or any control over it, have you? But how does that process work? Does somebody come to you and say, I want the best story that you've got and I want you to have nothing to do with it. Here's some money. I mean, what happens?
Yeah, well, I think that summed it up pretty well.
Okay.
I saw a very good YouTube video of you and Channing Tatum coming out of a cafe after having dinner in Oslo.
Yeah.
And Channing Tatum being so nice about you.
Yeah. It was,
do you have a bromance?
He was great. Well, I don't know, because I don't know how he reacted to there were some elderly couple, Danish people, that came up to me in the restaurant. I mean, I was sitting next to, the hottest guy in Hollywood. And he said, "You must be Jo Nesbo." They said to me, "Yes, I am." And then they turned to Channing Tatum and said, "Could you please, mister, could you please take a photo of us?"
Yes!
Yeah.
Yes!
But he was
yes!
But he was very nice about it. He just laughed,
That's a great
That's
moment.
awesome. That's what's awesome about little countries as well.
That's brilliant. How do you feel about that being around that kind of individual with that kind of style? Because, of course, being an author, I mean, authors are superstars. We interviewed Neil Gaiman not so long ago, who is a superstar in your world. But what is it like being with Hollywood superstars? What do you envy about their world, and what would you just rather not have anything to do with in their world?
I don't think I envy them
at all.
Anything? No, I try to. No, not really. No, I think for me it's
Surely it'd be like to dance like Channing Tatum. Surely.
Oh yeah, I'd like to look like them, but
possible
for me. For example, if sitting in a plane and the passenger next to you is reading your book, but not knowing who you are, that is the greatest thing. And I ask them, politely, "Do you like the book?" And they say, "No, really." Not really, and I can end it there, okay,
And then
let's stop here. I won't say anything more. If they like it, I can sort of say that I wrote that book.
Who was the author we interviewed, Sarah, who went and put personal notes in some of the books in bookshops? Do you remember?
Yes,
he interviewed someone,
I do.
and he actually wrote personal notes.
Yeah.
He'd walk into a bookshop and just write personal notes.
And so people would pick up the book and then go, "Oh my goodness, I've got one which has the little."
Can't remember the.
I can't remember who it was either. So yeah, that film though, you haven't had much connection with it, have you? The Snowman.
No.
So that's what happens. People come to you and they say,
"Yeah,
"Can we do your story?"
What I said was before I sold the rights.
Okay.
Because it took a while, and I turned down the offers I had.
Okay.
Because the movie is such a strong medium compared to the book, so I was a bit worried while I was still writing the series that the actor being Harry would sort of take over and define how we walked and talked, and I preferred there'd be 1,000 Harrys in the heads of my readers. But I always said, when a journalist asks about it, I always say that, okay, but if Martin Scorsese calls, I might reconsider. And that's more or less actually what happened, or his agent called my agent, and Martin Scorsese is now the producer of the Snowman, which is really nice. But
I didn't know that.
No, but
have you had a chance to sit down with Martin Scorsese and have the conversation?
No, I haven't. Like I said, I just sell the rights, and then I say do whatever you want with it.
What questions do you ask? Because they're coming to you, so you almost kind of interviewing them, or your agent is interviewing them.
No, I'm not really. It's just make a good movie, and I will not interfere because I couldn't write a book having someone interfere. So they are storytellers in their own right. So you know, Thomas Alfredsson, who made Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, he's going to direct it. So I'll just leave it up to him and stay away and say I'll kill you if you make a bad movie.
When you close eyes, do you see Michael Fassbender?
No, I don't. No.
Who do you see as Harry? If there's any other actor,
this really
tall, blonde, blue-eyed.
Yeah, well, a younger Nick Nolte, maybe.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Right.
He's pretty craggy. Listen, we've only got 5 minutes left, so I just want to make sure that you have plenty of time to talk about football.
I don't know what to say other than this is the greatest time in my living memory to be a Spurs fan.
But hold on, I've just got very, very quickly got to say before you do that, perhaps given that you're saying about handing over the rights, does this mean this is the last book? The Thirst is the last book with Harry in it?
The Thirst will not be the last book with Harry in it, no.
Excellent. Good news. Carry on.
What can we say, Joe?
No,
I mean, it's extraordinary.
We've deserved this. And, you know, I was so pissed when I read Nick Hornby and he was talking about being this suffering the Gunners fan. What does he know about suffering?
What does he know, right?
Yeah.
What does he know? He's had 20 years of Arsene Wenger. Obviously, it's not turning out so well at the moment. So I love the story about how you became a Spurs fan. This was your older brother, right?
Yeah, it was. I was this close to becoming an Arsenal fan because I know. He was subscribing to these magazines, and I must admit I loved the shirts, the Arsenal shirts. And then my brother came to me and he took the magazine away from me, and he said that you're a Tottenham fan and you have to know the whole squad by heart by Monday. I think I was 9 years old or something. So me and my brother, we became Tottenham fans, and now my daughter is a Spurs fan. My brother.
See, that's proper
Your
parenting.
nephew?
Yeah. That is proper parenting right there. You know.
And I've been taking them to matches. So
Well, but the first time you went to White Hart Lane, it wasn't so glamorous, was it? It wasn't open.
Oh, it was in the summer. So me and my brother, he was standing on my shoulders, trying to have a look into White Hart Lane, you know, and
It's closed.
and actually the supporters shop was closed also, and my brother, he was this kind of person. He just had to spend his money. He had set aside a certain amount, and he was just dying to buy some supporter equipment, some stuff. So we went to Highbury, and at Highbury the supporters shop was open, and I lost track of him just for a few minutes, and he came back loaded with Arsenal shirt, and I had
Literally money to burn.
I didn't beat him up, but I gave a few brotherly slaps. Yeah.
And I mean, none of us Spurs fans really want to talk about what could happen at the end of the season because we're 4 points away.
Yeah. Yeah, but we have I think Chelsea have 4 home matches. We have only 2. And we have Man U and Arsenal at home. And to be honest, I don't think. I think Chelsea will run away with this.
You've been asked this question before, and it was quite interesting how you defined various players, and you thought that Harry Kane was more of the killer.
Yeah, don't you agree?
Agreed.
Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah,
what is it? Over 20 and counting. 20 kills and counting.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And Dele Alli.
Yeah, he's the protagonist. He's the hero of the story. Good-looking, elegant guy.
Sarah, I shall hand Joe back to you for the last 45 seconds.
I had my feet up there. I was on the verge of. I was just listening and making a cup of tea. In terms of what you're going to write next, then this is a terrible thing to ask you because you've just finished this book and you are, you're going around and very kindly talking to us and others with it. But what kind of thing will you be doing? A more personal project again, or is it Harry again? What are you thinking about next?
Next, I'm going to some big mountains and go climbing. That's
Excellent.
my plan.
Where are you going climbing?
I'm going somewhere in Europe, northern Italy.
You're dressed well for it at the moment. Jo Nesbo, up the Spurs.
Thanks,
it's been fantastic meeting you today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
On digital and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
bbc.co.uk/5live.